Hello and welcome to part 3 of the MESHUGGAH discography. Before I get into that though, I thought I'd share something with you. I was out in my local town earlier and I managed to pick this up, which is Dying Fetus, their Descend into Depravity album from 2009. I went into Oxfam Music and you can occasionally pick up a real gem, and I managed to get this. And I also went into HMV directly after that, which is like your kind of mainstream kind of retailer store for like CDs, DVDs and that kind of stuff. And I saw the same album for 15 quid, and I picked this up for £4 in Oxfam Music. I just thought it was quite funny how big a difference there can be, and why it's always just such a good idea to have a look in like smaller stores. And I managed to pick that up and I was really happy with that. I was specifically looking for something by Dying Fetus because I'm really getting into them. If you like death metal, you should probably have heard of them before. If not, you should be a little bit ashamed. Anyway, part 3 of the MESHUGGAH discography, and we're going to talk about Obzen, which is their 2008 album, and sort of similar to Destroy, Raise and Prove. This is a very multifaceted album, but with this album it's done slightly differently. You have a very big mixture of more sort of accessible songs. I say accessible, it's definitely still MESHUGGAH with like your very heavy kind of guitar riffs, but not overly technical, if that makes any sense. If you know MESHUGGAH, you'll know that they often get mistaken for always using polyrhythms and really technical rhythmic ideas, whereas most of the time it's based around the 4/4 time signature, something a little bit more basic, but the way in which they use their rhythms, it gives you that kind of idea that it's more complicated than it actually is, and it's very interesting to listen to. But there's a good mixture of songs that you can easily kind of listen to and really kind of bob your head to and headbang to, but also ones where it's not quite as clear cut where kind of the beats are and what kind of pulse is going on. But on this album there are so many just fantastic songs, and after Catch 33, this may be my favourite MESHUGGAH album. I'm not entirely sure because there are so many good elements on their other albums too, but there are lots of good, very kind of landmark, very powerful songs on this album. Right from the first song, Combustion. Now this is a very thrash-based song, so it's almost like a throwback from their 90s days, so it's really nice to see that. And it even has the really kind of cool-sounding solo in it. Back in the 90s there'd be a bit more sporadic kind of things going on in the lead work from Frederick Thorndahl, but this shows like a really clear ability of having a really good grasp of the solo technique and being able to play that style of guitar, as well as of course the riffs and the really heavy chugging like rhythms that they're known for. Electric Red, the second song, is probably my favourite song on the album. I love the kind of tom work on the drums that goes on in about the middle of the song. It gives it a very tribal feel, but at the same time it's really technical, and you have to sort of listen to like where the cymbal hits come, like on the hi-hat or china or whatever, to really feel like where the pulse is in this, or even the snare as well. And that is just a awesome, really interesting song. When I first got this album, it took me a while to get into that particular song. I wasn't initially that into it, because it does take a while to really hear where the pulse is, I suppose, and hear exactly what's going on. But I think some of the soaring guitars and kind of like harmonic work that goes over the top of the riffs really make this a powerful and quite eerie, creepy sounding song. And of course we have to mention Bleed, which is probably the most famous song from this album. And the best way to describe this is as an endurance test. I think even Thomas Huck, their drummer, described it that way, because it is a matter of like learning the rhythms and then just getting the endurance down, because it is such a involved song from start to finish in terms of footwork on the drums and even the rhythm work on the guitars, because it is just so kind of unrelenting in its rhythmical nature the whole way through. And this is also another good song which kind of represents the really powerful lead work of Frederick Thorndahl as well, with a very structured, very melodic, very like pleasing sounding solo in this song too. Lethargica, which is the song that comes after it, sorry, is another one which is probably one of my favourites, but one thing I will say is you probably have to be in the right sort of mood for it, because it's a very sludgy, very doomy sounding song. You get that feel right from the beginning, because it's very slow and just very crushing. It's one of those great new age Meshuggah songs with like the slow riffs, and that's why I love it. But also the clean section in the middle of the song is just so damn dark. That's why I love it. But you're not always going to be looking for that kind of sound when you listen to Meshuggah. So I guess you could sort of argue that you have to be in the right kind of mood for it. I'm not always in the right mood for this song, because I'll be looking for something a bit more technical, a bit more involved. But for something that is just so heavy, this is a great place to go for this album, and you should definitely listen to that song. Where the weaknesses in this album sort of like show up are on the song This Spiteful Snake and also Pineal Gland Optics. While there are some good elements in these two songs, they just seem a little bit weaker, like compared to the previous songs on this album. But similarly to the kind of clean work that you hear in Bleed and in Lethargica, there are some really kind of eerie sounding melody lines going over some of the riffs on these two songs. So while there are nice parts of those songs, it does sort of present a little bit of a weakness on this album, because they're not as strong as the previous songs, like I said. But as soon as Pravus comes in, this sort of like rectifies it, because it's very fast and just unrelenting right from the first notes, right from the first few bars of this song. It's like very obvious that this is a very fast song. And there's a, like I said on the last review, it's not quite a breakdown, but you could almost see it like that. And that happens very near the end of this song, Pravus. And also the soaring kind of melody lines appear at the end of this song, and it makes it a very creepy, very eerie, very powerful ending. And last but not least, Dances to a Discordant System. This is a fantastic closer. I love the clean work that's going on again at the beginning of this song. And when the distorted guitar kicks in with the first riff, it's so it throws you off a lot, because you're not sure what time signature it's in to begin with the clean guitars. So it really throws you off, and it's really interesting to hear how it goes when the drums kick in. And then it's obvious it's in a more of a 6/8 kind of feel. And that's not too common in Meshuggah's music, so it's really interesting to hear that. And again, similarly to Combustion and Bleed, this is a very clear kind of example of some good lead work with Frederick Thorndahl's solo in this album. And again, some really soaring kind of melody lines going on towards the end of this song, which gives it a very powerful, very punctual, very awesome ending to this album. Another weakness I should mention is the drum sounds that you're going to hear. To begin with, it doesn't come across as that obvious, but the more you listen to it, especially if you're like listening to like headphones or through like earbuds or whatever, you're going to hear that these drums are quite obviously programmed. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean that Thomas Hark isn't able to play these parts, because it's obvious that he is, because I've seen them live myself, and they pull this stuff off like fantastically live. But sometimes the programmed sound can get a bit annoying, and you can definitely tell that there's like a bit of an absence of a human element in the drums, and especially with like superior drummer programs that some bands do use, you can sort of like hear similarities in these albums. But that's one kind of like minor gripe that I've got with this. And I suppose it depends on personal taste as well, but I'm not a massive fan of this approach. I love the sound of organic drums, and they do sound very different live to they do on this album, and I love the live sound that they have on the drums. Thomas Hark's kit is just incredible. But I will say overall that this album does deserve like an 8 out of 10, a very strong 8 out of 10. The overall sheer power that this album puts across is just incredible, and I would highly recommend it to any of you. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.